So our Torah portion this week, my friends, includes a very strange story. The story is of a Moabite priest named Bilam who is sent to put a curse on the tribes of Israel while they're camping in the wilderness. As the story goes, Balaam's plan is foiled right at the last minute, just at the moment when he opens his mouth to pronounce the curse. God rearranges his words and he speaks a blessing instead. One of the things that Bilam says in his blessing for Israel is that the Israelite nation should be blessed because, specifically, hen am levadad yishkan, they are a people that dwells apart. It is to Israel's credit and the core reason we are to be blessed that we're not like everyone else. We're a people who dwells apart. It is a very strange compliment. It's true, of course, that we Jews are unique. It ought to be a source of pride to us because our singularity makes us who we are. Our fate to be a people who dwells apart from the other nations of the world is a privilege and an honor and a mark of distinction. But at the same time, there is something troubling about this description of the Jewish people. Because after all, to be a people who dwells apart implies loneliness and solitude, vulnerability maybe, fragility. Perhaps this part of our identity is both a blessing and a curse. Over the centuries, the degree to which Jews have lived separate from the rest of the world has been seen as an explanation either for our thriving or our suffering, not only by people outside the Jewish world, but by ourselves as well. The balance between isolation and assimilation in the Jewish community has been examined and analyzed at great length over the past couple of hundred years by every sort of thinker and theorist, trying to explain the various reasons for why Judaism has grown and shrunk, why Reform Judaism in particular surged into such popularity in the 19th and 20th centuries, and why now in the 21st it appears to be softening a bit, along with just about every other non-fundamentalist religious movement in North America. Earlier this month, there was a small conference convened in New York, which brought together about 300 people, Reform leaders from our movement, all across the United States and Israel, to explore this question. The organizers of the conference called it Recharging Reform, and it sought to answer a few questions. What were the historical reasons for the explosive growth of liberal Judaism, and what will be the future of our movement in the face of growing fissures and debates within the world of liberal Judaism? What will be the future of our relationship with Israel and Zionism, about our shared commitment to Jewish study and spirituality, and about this very central question, about how to balance Jewish uniqueness with a Jewish commitment to the wider world outside our doors? Can Jewish uniqueness, Jewish separateness provide an antidote to these difficult trends, or will a focus on particularistic Jewish concerns eventually produce the seeds of more Jewish suffering? First, a moment of history. The roots of liberal Judaism began to grow in the 17th and 18th centuries when Europe first granted rights and citizenship to Jews, and we could participate in civic society just like our Christian neighbors. In those years, it was the first time that we could proudly say out loud, "We Jews, we're just like everyone else." And our willingness to assimilate, in the end, turned out to be the price that we paid for full admission to secular European society. Over time, however, the benefits that we won from Enlightenment and liberalism and the comforting embrace of universal hopes and values have taken on such powerful momentum that maybe they've gotten away from us just a little bit. Because today we face the opposite but equivalent problem, a weakening of the conviction that Jews ought to be uniquely concerned with Jewish well-being, over and above the rest of the world. Today, more and more of us, especially but by no means exclusively younger Jews in America, feel increasingly uncomfortable with the idea of distinctive Jewish peoplehood and the notion of a particular Jewish destiny. This is, of course, in line with other trends in Western intellectual life, postmodernism and postcolonialism, critiques of power and nationalism, and the growing role of social justice concerns in the halls of academia and the halls of power. But the desire for universal goals should not, I think, be allowed to eclipse the imperative of particular Jewish concerns and the Jewish covenant. This is, in the end, the great paradox of liberal religion, and it's one that was articulated by numerous speakers at that conference I mentioned earlier this month. One of the conveners of the conference, Rabbi Amiel Hirsch, observed that there is a certain school of Western liberalism, he says, that values universalism above everything else. But, listen to this, total universalism is a dead end for any liberal-minded movement. I'll let you sit with that idea for a second. Total universalism is a dead end for any liberal-minded movement. It's a hard thing for us to think about, especially as progressive Reform Jews, that there could be such a thing as too much openness, too much of an embrace of the larger world that has accepted and embraced us so warmly. It feels particularly uncomfortable now, on this last night of Pride Month, on this Shabbat after we've seen the erosion of the legal foundation for affirmative action in college admissions. It feels uncomfortable to say that openness and universal concern for others may not be an infinitely unbounded good. But, historically at least, the trend has been borne out in reality. When we become willing to trade our Jewishness for access to universal values, the consequences are often grim. So the solution, I think, can't be to trade our concern for the world at large in exchange for our concern for our fellow Jews. But neither can we turn ourselves only inward and concern ourselves selfishly only on narrow particular Jewish needs. The real truth, it won't surprise you to hear, is that the dichotomy between these two, between universal concerns and Jewish particularism, is a false binary. The message of the prophets, the timeless teachings that underpinned the whole foundation of Reform Judaism, the urge to repair the world, to care for those in need, that entire impulse is rooted in the experiences of the Jewish people, the timeless cohesion of the Jewish nation and our covenantal relationship with the Jewish God. We are the lucky heirs of a tremendously rich tradition, and we're called to be a light unto the nations, to busy ourselves with the welfare and the well-being of the entire world. But we can't make good on that obligation until we recognize that its source originates in our uniqueness, in the reality that we are a people that dwells apart. The deep wells of Jewish wisdom and Jewish ethics, the embrace of Jewish conscience and the discipline of Jewish lives, the pride of Jewish goodness and Jewish hope. All of these assets are abundant blessings in their own right, and they can be used to benefit the world around us when we turn them inside out and let their light shine. I don't know what will ultimately come out of that conference that was convened earlier this month in New York, but it seems that the ancient pagan prophet Bilam we read about in this week's Parsha was right all along. We are a people who dwells apart, and we have to remember who we are, what makes us precious and unique. We have to maintain that delicate balance between universalism and particularism, between isolationism and assimilation. The people who love us and those who hate us have both at times observed that we Jews aren't like anyone else. But we are still here because we have embraced the vision of what it can mean to be a people that dwells apart, to use our own small corner as a place to nurture goodness and generosity and kindness, and then for that place to use its light and warmth to shine on the entire world. Shabbat shalom, everybody.